Imagine you're sitting across from someone you actually like. Maybe it's a first date or a meeting with a potential business partner. The coffee is lukewarm, and the smell of roasted beans fills the air. You're talking, but you feel this strange creeping pressure in your chest. It's a subtle weight, like a heavy blanket being draped over your shoulders in a room that's already too hot. Every time they speak, they use your name, not just once, but in every other sentence. So, Milo, what do you think? I really value your opinion, Milo. It feels personal, yet strangely calculated. Your brain is firing off tiny alarm bells, but you can't quite figure out why. You feel like you're being led down a path you didn't choose to walk on. Your palms are starting to get slightly damp against the ceramic mug. You find yourself nodding along to things you don't even agree with. You feel your stomach drop because you don't even remember why you're here, and you have no idea where this conversation is going. You think the problem is that this person is a natural leader, or just very charismatic, but the truth is much more uncomfortable. You're not being charmed, you're being operated on. You think your problem is a lack of confidence, but it's actually a lack of awareness. Stick around because I'm gonna flip everything you know about influence on its head. We've all seen those dark psychology videos on TikTok, the ones with the edgy music and the stare at their forehead to make them uncomfortable advice. You've probably tried some of these tricks and felt like a total fraud, or maybe you've been on the receiving end and felt like a victim. I used to think people who use these tactics were just built differently. I thought they were born with a manipulation gene that I was missing. I thought I was just broken because I couldn't navigate a social circle without feeling like a doormat. But then I realized something about the advice we're usually given. Most self-help gurus tell you to just be yourself or have more boundaries. That's a false diagnosis. That advice makes things worse because it ignores how the human brain actually functions. It's like telling someone to win a sword fight by just being a good person. If the other guy has a sword and you have a wet noodle, your goodness doesn't matter. Psychologists call the biological reality of this cognitive friction. It's the resistance your brain feels when it's forced to process information that goes against its survival instincts. But here is the uncomfortable truth nobody talks about. Psychology isn't dark or light. It's just mechanics. A hammer can build a house or it can break a thumb. The hammer doesn't care about your morals. It just cares about the physics of the swing. I'll explain the final piece to this puzzle at the end, the part that decides if you're a leader or a sociopath. But first, we need to look at the three primary gears of influence that are being used on you every single day. Let's start with the most common trap you fall into. Rule number 1, the shadow of debt, reciprocity. This is the most human of all the dark tactics. It's built into our DNA from the days we spent in caves. If I give you a piece of my mammoth meat today, you feel a biological urge to help me when the tigers come tomorrow. But in the modern world, this is used as a weapon. Imagine you're at work, and a coworker you don't particularly like brings you a coffee. "Hey, I was at the shop and thought of you," they say with a smile. You didn't ask for it, and you don't even like lattes. But you take it because refusing would be rude. Now, let's look at how most people handle this the wrong way. 2 hours later, that same coworker comes to your desk. They say, "Hey, I'm totally swamped. Could you just take a look at this 40-page report for me?" You feel that weight in your chest again. You say, "Oh, I'm actually really busy too, but I guess I can help." You say it with a weak smile while your heart rate spikes. You feel resentful, but you feel like you have to say yes because of that $5 coffee. You've just traded 4 hours of your life for a drink you didn't even want. This is how you become a high-functioning doormat. You're being nice, but you're actually just being controlled by an evolutionary glitch. The hidden psychological cost of doing this wrong is identity erosion. Every time you say yes because of a fake debt, you lose a piece of your own agency. You stop being the protagonist of your life and start being a supporting character in someone else's. So how do you do it right? You use what I call the debt audit. The next time someone gives you something unsolicited, you acknowledge the gift, but you mentally decouple it from future favors. If they ask for that massive favor later, your script is simple and firm. You say, "I really appreciated the coffee earlier. That was kind. However, I don't have the capacity to take on that report right now." Notice the reaction. A manipulator will get angry or try to make you feel guilty. A friend will understand. By using dark psychology principles to understand the debt, you've actually created a filter for your relationships. You've stopped the shadow of debt from clouding your judgment. Rule number 2, the choice architecture, the false binary. This is where things get a bit more mastermind level. Human beings hate making complex decisions. Our brains are lazy. We want things simplified into option A or option B. Dark psychology experts know this. So they build a choice architecture around you to lead you to the answer they want. Let me give you an example of someone doing this wrong. Picture this. Let's say you're trying to get your partner to go to a specific restaurant. You say, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" You choose. This seems nice, right? But it actually creates decision fatigue. Your partner is tired from work. They don't want to choose. They say, "I don't care." And then you spend 45 minutes arguing because "I don't care" actually means "I'm too tired to think." This is an awkward, frustrating loop. The psychological cost here is the slow death of attraction and leadership in the relationship. Now, let's look at the quote unquote dark way to do this right. You don't give them infinite choices. You give them a decoy. You say, I was thinking we could either do that overpriced steakhouse that always has a 2-hour wait, or we could just hit that cozy Italian place around the corner. What do you think? What just happened? You use the contrast principle. By presenting a clearly inferior or difficult option, first you made the option you actually wanted look like a relief. You remove the burden of choice while still giving them the feeling of agency. The other person reacts with, oh, definitely the Italian place. Great idea. They feel happy because the decision was easy. You feel happy because you're eating pasta. Is this evil? Some would say yes, but you've actually just reduced the stress levels in the room. You're using the architecture of the mind to create a smoother outcome. But here's where everyone makes a massive mistake. They use this to trick people into things that hurt them. If you use the false binary to sell someone a lemon of a car, you're a predator. If you use it to help a friend pick a gym they've been procrastinating on joining, you're a coach. The tool is neutral. The intent is everything. Rule number 3, the silence anchor, the power of the vacuum. Most people are terrified of silence. In a conversation, silence feels like a social error. We feel this desperate need to fill the gap with words, jokes, or nervous laughter. Dark psychology leverages this horror vacuum. Let's look at the wrong way this plays out. Imagine you're negotiating your salary. Your boss says the best we can do is $60,000. You immediately panic because the silence after that sentence feels like a rejection. You say, oh, okay. I mean, I was hoping for 70, but I understand the budget is tight. And I really love working here. So 60 is fine, I guess. You just talked yourself out of $10,000 because you couldn't handle 3 seconds of quiet. The hidden psychological cost here is value devaluation. By filling the silence, you've signaled that your own needs are less important than the comfort of the conversation. You've signaled that you are easy to break. Now, let's look at the right way to use the silence anchor. This is the exact script. Your boss says the best we can do is $60,000. You don't get angry, you don't look away. You simply maintain soft eye contact, nod once, and say nothing. You wait. The silence will feel like it's vibrating. Your boss will start to feel the cognitive friction we talked about earlier. They will feel the urge to fix the silence. Usually, they'll say something like, but I might be able to talk to the director about a signing bonus, or maybe we can revisit this in 6 months with a guaranteed bump. By doing nothing, you did everything. You let their own brain work against their initial position. The other person reacts by negotiating against themselves. You haven't lied. You haven't been mean. You just allowed the vacuum to do the work for you. But here is the danger. If you stay stuck in the loop of being the person who always fills the silence, you will never know what people actually think of you. You will spend your whole life reacting to the noise, never realizing that the truth is found in the pauses. Right now, there's a voice in your head saying, this won't work for me, I'm too shy, or I don't want to be a manipulator. Here's why that voice is lying. That voice is actually your ego's defense mechanism. It wants to keep you safe in the known territory of being a victim, because if you admit that these tools work, you have to admit that you've been letting other people play you like a violin for years. It's easier to call dark psychology evil than it is to admit you've been psychologically illiterate. Escalate this out 5 years. If you don't learn how these gears turn, where are you? You're in a job you hate, getting paid less than the guy who knows how to use the silence anchor. You're in a relationship where your needs are always second because you're trapped in the shadow of debt. You're living a life that was designed for you by people who understood the dark side of the mind while you were busy being nice. It's a terrifying gray existence. You become a ghost in your own story. If you're tired of being the one who always blinks first, then maybe it's time to stop looking at this as dark and start looking at it as necessary. Before I give you the final secret that ties all of this together, I want to ask you something. If this video has made you feel a bit called out or exposed, that's actually a good thing. It means your brain is waking up. If you want to keep waking up, hit the subscribe button. We don't do toxic positivity here. We do reality. Comment below with I'm taking the wheel if you're ready to stop being a passenger in your own mind. Now for the final twist. Everything I've told you is powerful. The reciprocity trap, the false binary, the silence anchor. These are the how. But there is one mistake that ruins all of it. Timing? No. Confidence? No. The secret is transparency of intent. The difference between a dark psychologist, who is a villain, and a mindful influencer, is whether or not their intent is hidden. When you use these tools to help someone, to create a win-win, or to protect your own boundaries, you should be able to explain what you're doing if asked. If your boss asks why you're being silent, you could say, I'm just giving that number some serious thought because I want to make sure I'm being fair to both of us. Boom. The darkness evaporates. It becomes high-level communication. Manipulation requires a mask. Influence requires a mirror. If you can't look at your own tactics in the mirror, you're a manipulator. But if you can use these biological shortcuts to navigate the world with honesty and strength, you're not bad. You're just effective. Most people walk through life in a trance, reacting to every push and pull of the social fabric. Dark psychology is simply the study of those threads. You can either be the one being pulled, or you can be the one who understands how the tapestry is woven. You don't need to be a dark master. You don't need to stare at people's foreheads or use alpha body language. You don't need to be a sociopath to win. You just need to stop being a voluntary victim of the way your own brain is wired. The world isn't divided into good people and manipulators. It's divided into people who understand human nature and people who are confused by it. You now have the blueprints. You know how the gears grind. What you do with that knowledge is the only thing that actually matters. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. Stop letting the world happen to you and start happening to the world. Thanks for watching.